Hello, everybody, and thank you once again for tuning in to the Iron Purpose podcast. The conversation that is about to be played for you today is, it's not very often that I'm at a loss of words. And that's exactly what this conversation is. It's pretty one-sided, and that is on purpose. This guest actually gets paid to go around the state and talk to different inmates throughout a different amount of correctional facilities and just share his story. He has quite the experiences, and after hearing everything that he's been through, I just thought, man, it can't get any worse. And then boom, another thing would happen to this guy, and he continued to seek purpose. He continued to look after what what God has for him in his life, and I truly believe that he has found it now after everything that he's been through. Man, what a powerful story. I'm very much excited for you guys to hear it. This is episode 7 of the Iron Purpose podcast featuring Bert Brandt. Stay sharp, everybody. All right, everybody, here we go. Today I am joined by Bert Brandt. Bert, how you doing, man?
Super okay. Thanks for having me.
Super okay. Yeah, happy to have you on here. What you been up to lately? Been staying warm in the cold weather?
Yeah, when I'm not outside, I'm doing pretty good. So yeah, just hanging out with my dog Popcorn, and she's pretty easy. I mean, she goes outside, she comes right back in as quick as she can. So
Oh, I love that.
then in the
Yeah,
car,
especially
in the house.
my dogs. Yeah, they love to play outside, but when it's as cold as it has been, because it's are you in the Brainerd area or are you up in
I'm in Duluth.
Duluth?
I live in
Okay,
Duluth,
sure.
yeah, so that's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah, my it's been pretty chilly here, and my dogs they love to go outside and play in the snow, but after a little bit they're standing there holding their paws up, like, okay, let's go inside. I can't do this anymore. So it's outside bathroom, right back inside recently. Yeah. Well, for those, and I don't really know you a whole lot. I think this is the beginning of an awesome friendship that I think I'm gonna benefit from a whole lot. But for those that don't know who you are, I'm gonna give you the floor now. Take it away, man.
Okay, thanks, Bailey. Um, so I'm Bert Brandt, live in Duluth, and it's an honor to share my story here. I think the point is it's all about hope and just inciting courage. Um, And I just think some of the things I'll share, I think a lot of us go through stuff that really affects us, if not, I mean, just devastates us, and you just kind of ditch through it. You just roll through it, um, not knowing that you can have a different thought or a different anything. But,
Mm.
as the decades go by, you got stuff to deal with. So, and with God's grace. So I was born in the county hospital in Orange City, California in 1969. And my dad was born in Long Beach. Most of my family on his side still live in the neighborhood there in Huntington Beach and Orange City. Um, so we moved to the Bay Area when I was still in diapers.
Mm.
Um, and so, I mean, I lived in San Francisco, mostly grew up in the East Bay. So go Raiders. They're pretty rough this year, though.
Yeah,
It's hard
that's
to
all
be a
right.
fan all the time. Um, so I grew up in the East Bay. Almost always lived by the water. I mean, I live 2 blocks from Lake Superior right now, unplanned. I'm just kind of a water guy. Um, so we moved around a lot. I lived all over the East Bay as a child, and had some neat times, uh, some traumatic times too. And I'll say, my parents they were both like really tender people, right? It was a good word for them. Very tender, really cool, but I was getting mixed signals right away. So, like my mom, um, if she got mad, it was like you were in a fist fight kind of situation.
Mm.
Not good with discipline. Um, Wonderful person, not who she used to be, but that's just the way it was. I can remember one time, Saturday morning was the big breakfast at home, and she put a new pan on the burner on the stove, and then she went in the back room for like an hour, whatever it was going on with that? And the pan got so hot it cracked in half. So she's like, all right. She came out like, okay, let's go to the store and get a new pan or whatever. So we go to the store, and I mean, I'm short. I'm 5'6". My mom, top of her head's my chin right here. um, and anyway, so we get to the store, and they won't give her the money back for the pan. And she goes ballistic. Um, Starts threatening to break the windows with the pan. Tells us to get in the car. We're laughing because she's not mad at us. It's like, hey, we run out to the car. So this is a grocery store in a strip mall, Saturday morning. I mean, there's hundreds of people all over the place. And she's screaming, I'll break your fucking windows, that whole piece. And it ends with her doing donuts in the car in anger. She's just cussing and yelling. And I mean, it's like the Dukes of Hazzard gone wild.
Right.
And we're in the back seat. Ha ha, we're laughing because, again, she's not the best. So just kind of grew around that. Just really kind of an explosive kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Super tender too. So, and my dad, he was really good with discipline. I got something going on here. Because he was kind of scary looking. So if you knew you were going to get a SWAT, I mean, you were just terrified, and he'd give you a SWAT, and that was it, and you learned something. So he was better on that end. But I also seen my dad beat people unconscious in public. I mean, beat them to the ground. I can remember piles of dope the size of a couch in our house when I was a kid. So I think, my perception of a man and how you respond as you're moving through the day, like was probably kind of tripped out. And my folks put my brother and I in a Christian school when I was in second grade, so 6 years old. And I'll never forget. This is back in the early '70s. So the old school. If some of y'all probably remember, they act out the gospel on the felt board. You got the nativity scene and up to the the crucifixion. They acted out with the felt. And they did that, and I was just like, oh man, I am in. And I said the prayer. I prayed in. I got saved. Came to the Lord, however you want to say that. And I don't realize the significance of what's happening. I'm a kid. But looking back, the Lord's like 100%, dude, you're mine forever. And in that same season, I got baptized, and I did not realize the significance of the moment. Resurrection, new life, sealed in the Holy Spirit. It's a big moment. And shortly after that, they had all the kids. This was a grade school, so there was like 50, 60, maybe 70 kids in this school. And they had us all in the church area singing songs. There must have been a play or something coming up. And so everybody's full volume singing along. And all of a sudden I realize I'm speaking in tongues. I'm just like ripping, shine. Like I have no idea what I'm doing. And I covered my mouth like, whoa, what is going on? And it's one of those moments where, like, the first time you shoot a gun at something, you remember. It's just explosive, like, whoa. And no one in the room, no one discerned or saw what happened. So no one said that's good or bad, or this is what it is, or you should or shouldn't do that. But it was just like it was lost in all the voices, but I remembered. Like, it was a memorable moment. And I had no idea what that was at the time because I had never seen it on TV or in person or been told about it. I experienced it. So, that moment passed. So, how ironic. So, I'm speaking like that, heavenly languages, however you want to say that. And then I was also one of those little kids. I would sit and practice cussing alone. And I would cuss people out. And I'd be so pleased with myself. And so sure enough, I was cussing some kids out on the schoolyard at the Christian school. And I was quickly told, and he sent me to the principal's office. And the principal, this dear lady, she's like, well, Bert, you said the F word, and you're going to suck the soap. So, this is back in the day. So they still beat you with a bottle and suck. You had to suck soap at school. And she pulled out the old Zest bar, the orange cake. looked like a shoebox. My head's only this big, and it was all smooth. Like, man, these guys have been sucking the soap for years. And she's like, 2 minutes, dude. And I'll never forget. And I was like, I promise you, I will not do anything you say. I'm used to tough chicks at home, remember? And I'm thinking, there's no way she's making me do anything. It's certainly not suck soap. And I just said, no, I won't do it. I was nice about it, but I just said, no way. And she says, okay, I'll call your mother. I was like, yeah, go ahead. So I'm sitting in the office in front of her, in the main office in front of her little office. And a couple minutes later, at the very bottom of the window, you see my mom's flaming red hair popping by. It's like, oh man, I hope I survive. And she comes in, and I couldn't hear what was said, but she must have been, she was greeting the person at the front desk, and I mean, within a moment, my mom is like, "Shut that beep beep beep!" I mean, full volume. It got ragey, like shockingly, like, "Whoa, dude!" The principal came out and spoke up, and my mom told her, started cussing at her. I mean, it was wild, and the principal says, "Get out of here! We're calling the cops." And we're leaving the parking lot, and the cruiser's pulling in. It was wild. So out of that moment, I got kicked out of that school. And you could say I got kicked out of the church because that's where I got produced. Like that's where it happened and was happening. This really neat season of life, just, being in Christ. And so my mom never said a thing, never tuned me up for that. I think she felt bad for what happened because she kind of blew that up. But before the week was out, I'm going to the public school in my neighborhood, and it's a trip. I didn't think about this until a few years ago. Um, there was these canals and irrigation systems in my neighborhood where you could get around without being seen, and there was also a park behind the school that you could edge, and kind of be on the DL, big bushes and fences and stuff. Excuse me. And I would go to and from that school that year pretty much hidden. And I was just a few years ago, and I thought that is so odd for a kid to behave like that. And just looking back, I think I was really affected by like a rejection piece, or getting put out of that school, or perceived rejection, just because of what happened. But and things happen, and you don't know, if somebody doesn't, help you talk through or figure it out, you just get affected. But anyways, my folks got divorced when I was young, and that's when the blackout drinking started. So you don't have to be a CSI to figure that out. That was a problem. Was already partying and stuff. My brother's a couple years older. He was, he had a lot more traction and misbehaving than me. But, that's when it, obviously was a problem, blacking out and stuff. And it stayed like that for a while. But so me and my brother went with my mom, and she was working nights at the time. So it was kind of the perfect setup to misbehave. We could drink beer and smoke weed all night. And we're talking Bay Area, California, early 80s. I mean, you can see at the bars in San Francisco. I mean, it was a fun time to be a kid in in that area, but it was also, we got into the drugs, so it became a problem real quick. So we were doing everything, but, getting into doing crank, meth, alcohol was kind of the main thing. Little everything else though. But my brother started getting in trouble first, and he went away for an extended period of time when we were still kids, and felony probation at 12, and I'm in juvenile hall here and there. I was pretty courageous, happy kid. It was misdirected in a lot of ways because consequences weren't touching me at all. And it's probably my third or fourth time in juvenile hall, and I'm just sitting in there. Well, I get a new cellmate, and this kid, he's 3 times my size, and he wants to practice some wrestling moves, some sparring, boxing. and that's pretty regular for boys, to a point, right? And so we're getting into that, and then he gets me into a wrestling hold that I can't get out of, and the moment flips, and I get beaten and raped. And I mean, you talk about the needle getting ripped off the record. My course it wasn't altered; it was blown up. It was destroyed. Um, and I remember just sitting on this feeling of like everything I am, could be, would be, should be, everything I was gonna be, everything I was born into was gone. Everything of meaning and just, was gone. And it was all my fault because I did not fight hard enough. And I did not realize it's just something messed up that happened. It ain't like you wake up on Tuesday and you forget about it. It lit a
Right.
storm in me that pushed me for decades. Um, I don't know if anybody's ever been knocked out or half knocked out, and you kind of your ears are ringing, and it's like, who do I fight? Who do I go after, or do I run, or both? Um, that's kind of where I was at emotionally for decades.
Mm.
And a lot of ways, my childhood was a mass factory, um, and a lot of it wasn't. Just you're in the lane you're in, and and you just go. But I put on a lot of mass, and that whole convict thing was kind of one of them. But in a way, that's just the lane I got positioned in. But a lot of my friends, their dads, their uncles, their brothers were in and out of prison. So, and I'm in juvenile hall. It was kind of already happening. But I really just leaned into that mask, that no one's going to get the upper hand on me. Um, that whole thing. Um, I probably took the blame for a lot of stuff, just the way that affected me that I shouldn't have. Um, I got on this trip too where I wouldn't avoid conflict, real or imagined. And because if I did, it proved I was a coward in that moment when I got abused, and that I didn't fight hard enough. And
Mm.
it was pretty tough. I mean, I I went through a lot of pain and a lot of consequences because of that. Um, so, but that's where we were at. Um, and when I got released from that moment, uh, that's when I got introduced to intravenous drug use, shooting up. And I'm like 13 years old, about that. So, um, I mean, I'm just a child, and my life is swept out to sea. I mean, I'm totally spun on meth. Um, and you know, and looking back, knowing what I know now, um, I mean, that storm that ignited in my life because of that mental health stuff certainly came roaring into my life immediately. You know, but imagine if you don't. And I didn't tell anybody about this for decades, right? Imagine a kid sitting on a ton of anxiety, depression, just how that PTSD, how that affected me. Um, I think it's fear when this stuff comes ripping up, right? Oh, it's that fear. I'm a coward. I mean, you know how that would affect you. Like I had no idea that anything could be different. I just tried to not feel what I felt. I would have ate my fingers, just not feel what I felt, and not be me at that time. But anyways, um, and shooting up that meth, I loved it. I committed to it with all my heart and soul. I committed um, because it was like a picture of a dog hanging out the window going 100 miles an hour. I couldn't think. I couldn't hear. I couldn't hardly talk. And it's like perfect. This is exactly where I need to be. You know, and I tried to stay there. Um, so because of all this trauma, the mental health, the addiction piece, that I'm in now, um, it didn't get no easier for a long time. Um, so because of all that, I ended up in the youth authority, which is kid prison in California. I've done time in several prisons in California. I've been in a few prisons in Minnesota. A dozen DUIs, if you can believe it. I don't know how I had time for that, but, you know, 16, 17 treatments. And, you don't get a trophy for that kind of stuff. But, that's just how it went. I'll skip all the good pirate stories, but, it was really gnarly. It's just a lot of trauma, a lot of loss for a long time, like just unsustainable disappointment, that just kind of just went on and on. So I came to Minnesota. My father lived in Park Rapids. And I'm running from some parole trouble and some legal issues and that. And came up here, and within a few months, I'm on my way to prison in Minnesota. And I'm shocked, like, why is everyone picking on me? It's just like I was such a hot mess. So, when I met the right, wrong people, which usually you do in prison, and if you're real good at it, you're the wrong person to other people, right?
Sure, right.
So, but anyway, so I get out and I'm connected to some friends that, we're doing these things, and I have just access to a lot of cocaine and meth. And at that time in my life, really, really did some damage, put a dent in my head. Like I did a lot of dope, and I really thought I was going to be like permanently like, just fried. Like I really got off the chain. And I mean, it wasn't no pony ride before that, but I mean, this was just a season of really excessive abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So out of this season, my dope plug, I ended up losing that, not being connected to this crew, this culture, um, because I was just so hard to communicate with. So I was a very like just a loose cannon, a liability. Even in that structure, I mean, I was just like, dude, like chill. Um, so anyway, that broke up, and so I did not have access to drugs uh, for a time, and I couldn't drink either because I had a hot pancreas. So the way that expressed itself was if I drank, it looked like a diabetic coma. I just hit the deck, and because my body couldn't process the alcohol. So you're bouncing your face off the ground and whatnot, and end up in the hospital a couple times, and it's just like I can't drink. So here I am. At this point in life, I reconnected with my father. It had been a while. Um, but my dog's trying to come over. Stay there. She won't pay me no attention. And then when I'm on a Zoom call or something, she wants to come around.
Isn't it funny how that works?
Yeah. So, so here I am, forced to be sober and not happy about it. And there was like a spiritual side to it too, where I could just feel hands pushing my face. Plus just all the, how icked out and just need to be intoxicated, and all the pain and the mental health stuff, and would have gave anything to be able to float off and get away from that. But there I was, and it was a couple days into this, and I'm just sitting in the back room smoking cigarettes. All of a sudden, I remembered 20 minutes of information in a couple seconds. A vision, movie download from the Lord, however you want to say that. I remember coming to the Lord in every detail about it when that moment happened. I remember getting baptized and everything that happened.
Back to when you were a kid?
I remembered speaking in tongues and everything that was going, like everything about it just clears about. And I think, wow, I don't think I thought about this since I was a boy.
Right.
And my first thought was like, what's the psychological spin on why a kid would speak in tongues? That's kind of weird. That's where my first thought. And I'm sitting there thinking, and I realized, oh my gosh, I've never been exposed to that before that. I didn't even know it was a thing. I wasn't emulating my pastor, my teacher, my anybody. I experienced God in that. And as this is beginning to sink in, it's like, oh, I can just hear it. You're sealed in the Holy Spirit. You're mine. You burned your life down. What are you going to do? And I didn't feel ashamed. It was just like the Lord was just reasoning with me. And I just realized, like, oh my gosh, God's real. I've always belonged to him. He loves me. And I mean, you talk about, oh my gosh, but all of a sudden I'm super okay. I'm just filled with excitement. This is awesome. Just to know, like, irrefutable proof. I experienced him. He's real. And not only no wonder I survived 1,000 impossible to survive situations. It's because I was sealed in his spirit. But he also has this moment that he can pull out the trump card and reveal himself in this moment, like right at this time. Like, it's just incredible. And there was this sense of, I'm accountable to this. Like, there's a responsibility to this too. And that didn't feel good. That kind of icked me out. But the joy and the just amazement of like, wow, God loves me, and like I've always been in his hands. It just overrode that, that feeling of accountability. And I'll never forget, I'm like, Lord, I can't even cross the street legal, but just take me back. And he's like, I could just see him going, okay. Like, I've been setting this moment up for 30 some years, like, sure, I'll take you
Mm-hmm.
back. And it was like, the hands were off my face, all the distress, all the I was so sick at that time. And I was just completely okay. It was incredible. Um, so out of that moment, I stepped into um, a new beginning. Doesn't even touch it. It was incredible. Um, excuse me. This new beginning, and Jesus Christ is stunningly faithful. He'll do anything to give us another chance, to line us up at the gate so we can get it right next time. I mean, that's his thing. And he's so creative and so funny the way he'll do it. So I ended up meeting a guy, took me under his wing and was teaching me carpentry. I never really even had a job till then. Um, I ended up marrying his daughter. Um, and this family, uh, big family, the grandmas, the grandpas, the aunts and uncles, the little ones, everybody just loved me and rallied around me. I was invited to stuff all the time. They'd make up stuff just so we could hang out. And it was like I was so honored and included. This was not what I grew up in, and it was a super blessing, and it's wonderful. And also turned out I had a gift working with kids. Um, oh, and it was hilarious too because I mean, this is back in the day. Like I was really rough around the edges. I'm missing a front tooth, you know, and was probably talked a lot rougher or whatever. Um,
Sure.
well, it's church Sunday morning, and this gal's like, "Hey, you come here. Like you're supposed to be in here." She's working in the nursery. So imagine that. I mean, I got a lot of ink and stuff, and she's like, "Yep, yep, come here," and just hands me a baby, and it's like, and I'm thinking, no, this is not correct, and it's like, nope, like this is what God told me, like you're
Wow.
you're on the crew now. And it was like one lady actually came in, looked at me, and walked out with her kid, and we just laughed, and it was just a God thing. Like I didn't sign up for it, and it went into Sunday school, Royal Rangers. I was involved in that for years, and training people in leadership, and it was just this, especially with my childhood, it makes sense to really have, and I just loved it. I mean, it was so dear to me to teach kids to trust the Lord and to pray, and how to navigate situations and have the Lord in it. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. Definitely a highlight of my life. So I made a terrible mistake 4 years into this. One of my in-laws spent about a half an hour explaining to me why it's okay for me to drink alcohol, because I'm not the same person, and it won't be the same, and this and that. And this person wasn't icky or anything or trying to lead me astray. This family had never seen addiction or alcoholism face to face before. And they're the kind of family that would get a 12 pack and there's still 4 beers. 2 weeks later, there's still some beers left. Just regular
Mm-hmm.
people. Um, and, and thank God I finally figured out across the board, not just this situation, but I'm responsible for all my disappointments. And if something's not fair, I'm still responsible to navigate it correctly, so I don't get bitter or, off the rails. So, um, I guess I've been out of the fire so long, I forgot what the smoke smelled like. And I just thought, well, maybe you're right. And it wasn't like a two-faced thing. I just thought, well, maybe you're right, And I drank 4 or 5 beers and um, had a wine cooler. And so I was floating around. I mean, I hadn't drank in 4 years. Um, and there was no negative speaking, nothing bad happened. And I just thought, wow, I have this epic new beginning in Christ, and I can get buzzed up too. Like, I was thrilled, right? This is great. And I don't begrudge people. A lot of people can drink a few beers, and it's like, it's great, but not
Mm-hmm.
me. So within a couple months, um, I knew like this is a problem. This is going the wrong direction. But I was off already. I was deceived. I was wonky, right? And I just thought, well, I'll just figure it out, and you know, within a couple years, I'm divorced. I'm shooting dope. I'm drinking whiskey out of the bottle. Lost everything, um, of significance in that, and it
Mm-hmm.
was really awful too. And when I think back too, I mean, imagine this gal that married me. I mean, one of the neatest gals ever. Super funny, beautiful, beautiful lady. And she marries this guy, and there's nothing fake, false, two-faced. We're ministering to children together. I mean, it's super cool. And then all of a sudden, it's just like I'm somebody else, and I'm a liar. And I'm like, it's just, oh, I just can't imagine how traumatic that was, and it's just so unfair. If being a jerk
Mm-hmm.
face was criminal, like I'd be doing life for that, it's so unfair, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, at the end of the day, no matter how rough your life's been, you get to decide what kind of a man or woman you're going to be. Really, that's what's up. So, and it takes God's help to step into that for sure. But that's the truth. Um, so, after this, and it was all my fault, uh, the loss, losing my wife. But I lost this whole family, and this was an unsustainable loss. I cannot tell you how brutal that was. And I mean, I spent a couple years probably, I don't even remember. Um, like if I wasn't just cross-eyed spun on meth or blackout drunk, I would weep morning, noon, or night. Like I mean, this was like a devastating loss, and I spent a fortune like trying not to cry, and it still came busting through, from time to time. But that was tough. Um, so we get to 2006, and I don't know how I would do it, but I mean, I wouldn't even remember leaving work. I'd be falling off ladders and stuff, drunk, and I'd come back the next day with the level and whatever I left off on. I mean, it was 100% true. I mean, I don't know how I did this. Um, anyways, I was working, and I ended up down in Mississippi in at the Biloxi, um, the Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. So after Katrina, they had to put the Air Force back together. Half of it was trashed and that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was down there doing that. And I got a job offer in Duluth, building custom homes with these guys. And a friend of mine does wood floors, and they were looking for a guy. And he's like, "Hey, I know who you're looking for. You should meet this guy, Bert." And anyway, so it was like that. So okay, I'm gonna work up here for a month. And I rented a place in Duluth for a month, and I'm coming back, and we'll either gel and I'll stay or I won't or whatever. But so I'm coming up for a month, and so that puts me cross country. And I'm coming up through Mississippi, through the edge of Tennessee, into Arkansas. If you've been down that way, thank God I got over the bridges. There's a bunch of bridges in this bottom of the state in Arkansas, and I had my cruise control set on 86 miles an hour, no seatbelt, and I always set it at 86 back then. I don't know why, but um, and of all days, this was the only day that summer I was sober, and I completely fell asleep driving. So I wake up, and the car's going 86 miles an hour heading for oncoming traffic. Thank God that the medium I was in was really wide. I mean, it was 35, 40 yards across. It was a huge open space. And I pulled back to the middle, and the car must have been a little like kitty wampus sliding, because I thought I was going straight. I tapped the brake to get the cruise control off, and the car just started whipping. And I knew it was going to flip, and I got into the steering wheel, jammed my butt between the door and the seat. I mean, I got all the way to the floor. I don't know how I did it. Boom, got under there, and the truck started flipping. And I didn't lose consciousness. Everything turned bright white, and I could taste blood and glass. I could hear myself kind of huffing and howling when the truck would bounce. And never forget that. Um, when the truck stopped moving, my vision came back, and the top of the door, where the door and the roof transition, was on my head, and then my arm was sticking out the window, like where the review mirror would be, was kind of where my elbow was sticking out the window. So I'm doing like a hockey stick headstand in the cab, passenger side's up on top, facing the sky. And I'm just sitting there, and it's kind of like I'm getting a little assessment, and it's like, man, I am stuck. And it's like, goodness sake. And I got a bunch of money in the car, my tools. I bought this car literally the day before, in the afternoon. And I'm thinking, well, maybe we'll roll the truck over. I can just take off. I'm in shock. I'm not feeling the pain yet. And I don't realize the seriousness of the moment. And all of a sudden I can smell iron because I'm bleeding out so bad. And it's like a butcher shop, there's just that iron smell. And it's like, oh man, like this might be serious. And I can kind of look over, I can see my arm, and I can just see, you can see the veins, the flesh, like my arm is just trashed. It almost got ripped off. And then I'm kind of I can see like the whole dashboard, the windshield's just all crushed. And it's like, oh man, like this is probably, bad. And you can hear feet kicking through the grass. I can hear a couple people running up. And you hear the bam, their hands, they must be looking down the window, the passenger side. And they didn't say anything. And I was like, hey, rock the truck on the back roll. I'm going to pull my head out. I go, my head's stuck. This is really serious. And this truck starts rocking a little. But it wasn't like, you need a good rock, where that thing's almost tipping over so you can wiggle out. And they were just kind of, so they were just kind of smushing me. And it was the best bad idea of the moment. It's like I tried something, right? And
Right.
it seemed like forever, but I'm sure it was just like a minute. And it was like, well, we can't do it. And as soon as I heard the guy say we can't do it, I went into full panic with all my strength. I'm trying to rip my arm and rip my head free from under this truck. And I probably really injured myself in that. It was probably half the injury. I don't know, but and I was freaking out. Get this truck off, my head is gonna pop. And I was with all my strength, I'm ripping and just, and all of a sudden you hear like an Avenger movie, the Hulk, like Hulk footsteps, boom, 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 boosh, the truck flips over, and I'm just Crisco greasy with blood. I'm just a trash. I slide out the window, I stand up, my arm, at the elbow is going the wrong way, and my face was really messed up, from that truck hitting me. So I'm stand up, and it's two guys and a gal about my height, and they're not making Hulk footsteps. And I know an angel ran up in that moment, like that was his moment, that was his cue. Okay, go. And the truck was off me, and they were shocked. They were looking at me. It could have been the condition I was in, all bloody and everything, but usually when somebody says I can't do something, if you're working on your car, you throw your wrench down, and they might not even have had their hands on the truck when it flipped. And I don't know who they were or how to verify that, but I know an angel flipped it. I don't know all the details, but you can't tell me no different. So it was really a trip in the hospital. If Tarantino did a haunted hospital movie, this would be it. Like it was a trip. We won't go into all that this time, but survived that, and that was just a truckload of miracles. And I really got beat up from that, and ended up having like 11 surgeries, like total shoulder rebuilds, this side twice, a bunch of stuff, bunch of neck and back stuff that were procedures. I think they're experimenting on me, sticking hot forks in my butt or something. It seemed like I was injured more every time I went in for that stuff. But it was like a long stretch of like, it's just a tough time. And then the big piece, the reason I share this, I got a traumatic brain injury out of this too. And it was really pronounced for a few years. And it was pretty obvious. So this was diagnosed but untreated because I was ashamed of it. Just trying to blow through it. Another piece that was going on was I was given, I mean, we're talking Oscar the Grouch size pain pills, bottles of pain pills, and Dilaudid, Lortabs. I mean, so this became a brutal addiction, plus everything else I needed to deal with. So, and this brain injury, the way it affected me was very emotional. It'd almost be like if you had a circuit board and was something fired, it'd be like, okay, that one's hot or that's a problem. Mine, if something fired, the whole thing lit up, if that makes sense. So it was
Mm-hmm.
really unmanageable emotions, and there was a paranoia side too that was uh, really afflicting, really afflicting. I don't know if you've ever seen those. Minnesota's a big bow hunting culture. It's the deer skull or the deer skull that turns into a skull. It's like a
Bone collector.
yeah, or it's got the chick version with it turns into a heart or whatever.
Yep, yep.
I thought whenever I saw one of those that this was a group of people that were all after me and like working against me, and they're everywhere. I mean, it was exhausting, and I mean, yeah, I was on drugs and stuff too, but even when I wasn't, this stuff would like consume me, and it was a lot of it was the brain injury. Like it was really really difficult. Um, so I got to a point. Um, this is 2012, so I'm walking this out for 6 years, and a friend of mine knew a guy that ran a treatment center in Cambridge, and he would always hit me up. Uh, hey dude, if you want to go to treatment, I can get you right in. You just let me know. And um, it's like, yeah, whatever. And then one day it just made sense, and I was drinking really bad, um, and it's just like, yeah, I can't do this. Like, let's go, let's do it. So he takes me down there. I get in there, uh, day and a half into it, as my blood starts to cool off and I'm sobering up, anxiety hits me so bad. It's terrifying. Like, end of the road. I cannot kick the can. There is no more road to kick. The can's gone. It's over. I completely fold mentally. And I cannot do this treatment. I end up in the psych ward like 4 or 5 times in a short period of time. So out of this ordeal, I end up in a dual diagnosis treatment center called Arrowhead East here in Duluth. So it's mental health um, and a relapse prevention piece. So I tap into this place, and a lot of neat stuff starts to happen. Um, I've got a trauma therapist, um, taking some meds. At that time, may or may not have been correct, but we're doing the medication piece. Thank God I'm not on any meds now. But at the time, it was, we're trying to get this stuff to cool off and get a grip on it. So I'm moving forward. I'm doing a lot of things I should have been doing for years, and I am taking ground. So this is great. I still didn't get sober for another year, but it was hard. It was hard to be me. um, so, but June 11th of 2013 is when I got sober. So I'm approaching 12 years of sobriety now.
Wow.
Thank God. I'm just so grateful.
Amen.
And so, you know, it was at some point after I got out of Arrowhead East, it was a couple years after, a few years. Um, I had this idea, and I know it was from God because it wasn't a bad one, to go back to Arrowhead East and do game night. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to bring soda pop, candy. We'll have a spades tournament or Monopoly or Yahtzee, and just have a casino night, kind of just get jacked up and have some fun. And, half the people in there are homeless, or the first month you don't get a pass because you're likely to relapse, that kind of a thing. So they need game night. And then my heart is, um, in this structure of game night, I'm going to incite hope and just try to connect with people. Hey, man, it doesn't matter if you get a hopeless Chip's case, you're hopelessly addicted, hopelessly mentally ill, hopelessly ashamed, right? Um, if you hope hard, if you hope on purpose, you will move forward. And especially if I can encourage anyone, to remember, the Lord, or just encourage them in to hope in God. Certainly that would be plan A. But, so I went, and one of the gals that pretty much ran the place was staff when I was there years before, and we got along really well. And I told her what I just told you, and she's like, dude, game night's great. Let's do it. She goes, the only thing is, you got to get certified as a peer support specialist. And at that time, that's the first time I had heard of that. So, and it was a practical reason. With the certification as a peer support specialist, I could go into a lockdown facility and not be breaking any HIPAA laws or house privacy rules. Right? Because, I mean, the news guy might be on there, the weather guy. He don't want you to see him in there or talk about it.
Right.
So, but anyway, so with this certification, I got an open door. And for anybody that doesn't know what peer support is, peer means equal, of course. Support to me means if you're supported, you feel safe in whatever structure that's happening, one-on-one or in a group or whatever. Like you feel safe. And if you feel safe, exponentially better odds that you could tap into hope and courage when it's time to make a change or make that hard decision or keep making it that right thing, right? Even if you're getting kickback on it. So, and it covers mental health, addiction, trauma, shame. And I knew that I should do this. I knew that it was on target for me because everywhere I looked after that, I would see a target. I mean, constantly. And I felt like God was just saying, dude, this is on target. You need to do it. So I agreed to do the class. And this was so funny. This particular class was in Grand Rapids at the time. And a friend of mine's nephew lived there. So she called him. I had never met him. And I'm going to stay at his place, do the 2-week class. So I walk into his house the first night, and there's like 60 targets taped all over the living room because he had just been target shooting and he just wanted to look at them. And he didn't know the target thing, right? So I just knew like this is on target. I'm laughing like, wow. Yes, this is awesome, right? So if anybody has a chance to do the peer support training, I would recommend it. I mean, it was life changing for me, and I made a couple friends that are like family to me still. And this is back in 2016. Jody London, who is Wellness in the Woods, and that's who I do peer support through. She happened to be doing the peer support training in that moment. And so the first week of training, on Friday, before we take the weekend off, everybody's assignment is to tell your life story. And then when we get through that, we'll take our weekend break and then come back for the next week. So I got my crack and I let it rip. The whole pirate story, I mean, like an hour and a half. And I told a bunch of trippy stories and stuff. But, afterwards, Jody came to me and she's like, hey, man, I need you to work for Wellness in the Woods. I'll pay you to tell your story. Minnesota needs a flash of hope. They need to hear your story. And just like, what? And it was like really good money, like rock star money. Like, and I'm super blessed what I'm doing now. But when you're just getting paid to show up and speak, it's like it's a really cool deal. And so the money's really cool, and it's an honor to get invited on the team, right? So what's the problem? Well, I got problems. So imagine that car wreck piece, right? So I had a couple mental health moments after that where I couldn't work, and I didn't look at it like, oh, you just come back later and it's okay, take your meds or whatever. I looked at it like you're a bum, you're a loser. I was ashamed, and it was devastating. And these were back in the relapse years and stuff, and it was really brutal. And then I'd had physical stuff where I'd have a surgery, go back to work. Like I'd had some of them where they had to be done twice because they blew up. Or you just get to a certain amount of time, hey man, this elbow's falling off, and so it's just like there were several years where I just had a lot of surgeries, as I just progressed through this era of healing, And so my point is, I had been through a lot of false starts, and as tapped into hope as I was pretty scared of another false start. What if I step into this outfit and it blows up? or for whatever reason it goes away. And it took me like 2 or 3 months to join the team. It was like I had to call my trauma therapist. I hadn't talked to the guy in like a couple years. I mean, it's funny now, but at the time, I mean, it was the most serious thing on my plate. Like I'm freaking out because I want to do this, but I'm like, I can't do it. I was such a hot mess. Um, and thank God I finally tapped into it. And Jody has been just a blessing from God. She's just this woman that God positioned at all these different gates and opportunities to just kind of open the door. And it's just been incredible. She's got a gift for like, I don't even know if she sees it at the time, but she'll snap people up and then put them in a lane where they can operate in their gifts, and just be them. And I've seen it with several people, including myself, and it's just really interesting. So anyway, I'd say for a couple years, Jody, she would just fire me off to PTSD conference, trauma conference, a mental health conference. Um, talking to the cops at the cop shop, probation officers, social workers, community things, just people like us, service providers too. Just there's always these different kind of events. So here I am, I'm going to these events and I'm sharing my story, and it's so healing and affirming. I'm just being me, just giving what I got. I'm just talking the way I talk, and people are getting encouraged. I really saw a theme with service providers where I think a lot, it takes a lot out of you to just keep investing in people, and there's a lot of heartbreak too, and you hope in people, and then it doesn't work out. But I saw a theme where service providers were just tapping into that integrity, that honor of like, you just keep dropping those dots, and the Tetris will fall. You might not see it, but you're a part of a big deal. Anyway, I thought I saw that happening, and it was just really wonderful. So this is a really neat season in life, and my Jody introduces me to RAP. RAP is a wellness recovery action plan, not Cool Modi. So, and it's a really strong, straightforward approach to just being the real you. You know, you get abused or raped when you're a kid. You start doing narcotics at a young age. Whatever gets you off track. Several years later, I mean, there is no hope, and you probably don't look like the real you, and probably don't even have a whiff of what that is. I know that was partly my experience. So, um, really, there's more to it than that, but it's just a neat way of like, if you can identify like who you really are again, you can use all your strengths to be that and make it a value, like telling the truth. Like, I know who I am, and I'm going to be that on purpose. I'm going to be that hard, like, and really intentional. So no matter what you feel, or how hard you want to relapse, or just blow up your life, whatever that looks like in that moment. It's like, no, I'm not going to ignore my conscience or step across my values to get something fast or not feel what I don't want to feel. I'm going to get through it. And like I said before, stuff can light a storm in your life that'll push you. I was pushed by a storm for decades, and now I still have tough moments, but usually, I mean, I could see the storm coming, and I know if I lit it up, usually, you know, sometimes I had a part in lighting it. And you know, and it's interesting too because you can know everything about storms. If you're in one, all you can do is hang on, but it really, really matters that you hang on, and that's something that the rap plan really communicates, and people can hope and get excited about making some decisions and tapping into that. And so I really love the rap plan. It's really helped me too personally. So I got some advanced training, did a couple uh, facilitated a couple rap classes around the state. Super neat experience. I mean, very cool. Um, and then Jody comes to me and she's like, "Hey, man, I'm talking to some people at Minnesota Department of Corrections. They want rap and peer support structure in the facilities in the prison." since you're the only ex-convict on the team, how'd you like to be the lead? And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So, and remember, I'm just a dude from the neighborhood trying to do game night. And I
Yeah.
never did game night at that place. It's like the door opened and God's just like, go, dude, go. And it's like,
Wow.
it's just wild. Um, so um, it started in Lino Lakes Prison, and for 2 years we did a pilot program there. And if you've ever been to a rap class, the first day the facilitators tell their stories in length. They share their story, and everybody in the room gets to share like a couple minutes or just something interesting about yourself if you don't want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that moment where everybody's kind of connecting and deciding to trust each other and that. And so this was awesome. Like Jesus has an awesome sense of humor. So I'd finish my story with, hey you guys, I actually did a parole violation in Lino Lakes back in the day, and so I've been on this yard, and it looked like me getting drunk on hooch, getting into a fist fight, and they shackled me up and took me to Stillwater to finish my number. No parole. When I was done, I maxed out and I was done. And it's like, I was that kind of guy. Like, I party too hard for this facility. And I was let out in chains. And it's like, I'm coming through the front door now with security clearance and like telling you, let's hope hard. Let's hope on purpose.
Wow.
Whether it's resurrendering to Christ, taking your meds, sobriety for sure, trauma therapist, something else, or all the above. Let's do it hard. Let's do it on purpose. And everybody, I would say almost everybody in prison, in and out of jail, are tough as nails, or you could say resilient, very resilient, right? They've lost everything multiple times. I mean, you got to be tough to endure that. But what if that toughness was channeled into like hope, courage, being careful with everybody, being careful with every opportunity? I mean, you'd be on a whole different side of the street, you know, and you can, we're in control of our resiliency, and we can
Mm-hmm.
resist a lot more than you think. A lot of it's perception and just hanging on for a while.
Right.
It hurts, so how much you regret. Um, so um, these were like, it was so wonderful getting to do that. And at one point, this was a few years, one of the COs that got murdered, I think it's Stillwater. Uh, there was a couple of other nasty assaults on staff in the Minnesota prison system. So security got really tight and this and that, and they skipped a couple classes on us. They canceled them. And then I started to get the feeling that they were like kind of nicely just kind of, we're done with this peer support and rap. And, so one day, Jody, she says, hey, we got a meeting at DOC headquarters in St. Paul and you're supposed to be there. And it's like, well, what's the deal? And she's just like, I don't know, just be there. And so I honestly thought they were just going to say, hey, thanks for coming, thanks for leaving,
Mm-hmm.
And so we get in there and we get up in the room and that, and it's a room full of people, and half of them I knew, they were like mental health leads from like different prison stuff, so I had talked to them or actually spent time with them, doing classes and stuff. And we get in there, and all of a sudden this thing starts, and everyone starts honoring me and complimenting me and what I'm doing, and people are getting encouraged, and wellness in the woods, and it's just like, wow, this is incredible. I'm just thinking like, Lord, I mean, it's just hilarious. Like, I'm an ex-convict, and here I am in DOC headquarters, and these people are saying all these nice things to me, and
Right.
honoring me and honoring my boss Jody, and it's just like, wow. And they're talking about, well, we're going to do this, and we want to start doing this over here in this facility. And a mental health lead from one of the prisons, actually from Shakopee, she says, well, why should we pay you to come into our facilities and do what I could train my staff to do professionally? And the room went dead silent. Everyone looked at me like, yeah, why should we do that? And it was like, if you pray and the Lord helps you, you just know like, wow, that God, that God did that. It was one of them moments I just think, well, the reason you can't do this without us is because I have a gift from God. I have hope. It's not a concept or something I've memorized. I have hope. And if I explain it, like I can give it, and if people want it, they can run with it. So that's why people are getting encouraged, and some are even getting excited about changing everything and just starting over, you know. And it was so funny because it was dead silent. Nobody turned their head, but everybody's kind of like looking at each other like that. Like, oh my gosh, he said God. Like, I'm expecting her to be like, okay, get out of here. And all of a sudden, the main lady, she goes, okay, um, you're no longer in Lino Lakes. Now you're going into the level 5 prison at Oak Park Heights. And
Wow.
and she says, you can go in this other prison too if you get time. We'll give you the money to do that this year. And it's just like, what? What just happened? You know, it was just awesome. And I mean, just what an honor for God. He'll just position us. It's just a trip because, you know, he tells us to trust him. And he anoints us. He gives us the power to trust him. And then he makes our lives like finding treasure because we trusted him. It's just a heck of a deal, you know, that um, the Lord is just really cool. So
Yes, sir.
I let me just share a couple things that I'm almost done. Um,
Yeah, don't worry about
so
time. Keep going, man.
we're in um, Oak Park Heights, uh, Supermax. You know, it's the level 5 prison, and we're doing rap on the mental health unit. Um, and I mean, this is just what an honor to be allowed in there, to be trusted and let in. I mean, it's just really cool. A couple of the highlights of my life happened there on the mental health unit. Um, there was one guy in there that poor guy. I mean, you could just look at him from across the room and you knew he had some serious mental health ordeals and stuff going on.
Mhm.
And this guy, I mean, he was in his 30s. He had like, it was like 40 years till his parole date. And he hadn't been out more than like several months since he was a teenager. And like I said, a lot of ordeals, like a lot of stuff to deal with. And he had a lot of solid reasons to not hope, right? And you know, that first day of rap, everybody's kind of sharing, and he shares that he wants to be in the mentor program, mentoring other inmates. So step one is you got to get off the mental health unit. You know, first step to that is you got to finish 5 days of programming. And this guy had never been able to finish a day of programming. He just always like, I got to go back to myself, you know, just his mental health stuff. And well, this guy, he finished the whole week. And I mean, I was just, what an honor to be a part of that, you know. And they even shut us down. The last day we got kicked out of the facility, they had a lockdown because something kicked off. And I had to come back like a week later for like an hour and a half to make it, you know, legit, you know, finish the class. And he showed up
Mhm.
for that too. And it was like, I mean, I would choked up several times just thinking about that. Just so grateful to be a part of that guy's moment. And there was another guy. I'm gonna read a couple poems here in a second. But so during the class, you know, I read a couple poems, and this guy shares, "Hey, I write and perform R&B." I'm just like, "Well, let's hear some product, dude." I've read some poems. Like, I'll read some more if you sing a song. And he gets up and he rips one out. And this was like, it was like Rick James, Delphonics, you know, and
Uh-huh.
it was super good, man. The guy just was getting funky, man, and like he did this two, 3 times during the week. I asked him, I'll be like, hey, I'll read another one. Will you sing a song? And at the end of the week, the CO that was, you know, there with us in the class, you know, during the class, he says, hey, man, that guy's been in here forever, and nobody's ever heard him sing. Not at the card table, not in his cell, not in the shower, nothing. And it was just like, whoa, dude, for him to just be the real him, especially in that setting, in that
Mm,
culture, was just priceless, you know, to be involved in that, you know, um, just incredible. Um,
absolutely.
so, um, and I'm going to read a couple poems. Um, so we're almost done, but um, I'll always do this when I do a rap class, different settings when I'm locked in, you know, in a lockdown setting, doing forensic peer support. Um, and it's really important to me to communicate. And I think it's important for people to just be, if you can be the authentic you, that's it. That's a meaningful life. You are fighting the good fight. If you can just be you, because the whole world's
Mm-hmm.
waiting for that. Certainly your family, or anybody you
Right.
have destiny with in the future. Like, you just got to be you, and that's it. Just demonstrate
Mm-hmm.
Christ the way only you can. That fountain of generosity and laughter. Like, you're it, man. That's it. Um, and now, when I was a little boy, when I learned to read, immediately I would corner people. Hey, listen, listen. And I'd read to them. And it was super serious to me. They'd be trying to get around me. I'd be like cornering them, like, hey, wait, wait. Pop on pop. Like, listen. And they're like, all right, all right. And it was just, that's just always been me. And and I guess the point is it's been a long road to hoe, but I'm back.
Mm.
And you gotta listen to me read for a minute.
Let's go.
So
Yeah.
um this one, uh, when Jody uh when we got through the certification to be peer support, um Jody made it this super cool moment. She made a big giant cake, and she made us pick a song. She called it a fight song. And she made us throw out suggestions and then vote on it. And I can't remember what it was. I like blocked it out. It was like Katy Perry or something. And that was our fight song. And we also had to pick a title for our class. And I voted for Recovery with Cheese, but no one else did. So that's not what this is called. Um, we became the Determinators. So, uh, and this isn't just the name of my poem or whatever this is. And it's not just that class's name or declaration. This is yours for anybody hearing this. Anybody that's pushing through an awkward moment, intentionally stepping up to some consequences, just getting through, getting better. This is for you, or anybody encouraging anybody else to do that. So this is Determinators, and it's totally yours if you want it. Some of us were raised by wolves and got punished for biting. Some of us got spun. It killed the pain, seemed exciting. We got touched too soon. We did time alone in dark rooms. You just go figure it out, seemed to be the tune. We were determined to die. It's all so unfair. Our broken last stand is just a refusal to figure out why. Our determined, broken attempts to be free, to escape so many pains, all the secondary traumas put dents in our brains. We're suspected of being totally insane. Now in a new day, somehow we're here, and together peer specialists will be, determined to share wisdom and dignity. In grace and in light, we'll maintain our gift, we'll share our recovery. We're the determinators and we ride. We're the determinators. We're determined in our victory to exalt life, to facilitate recovery. So that's for you determinators out there.
Love that.
And then I'll close with this one. This is an old one. Reflections. Reflections on the concrete floor echo down the corridor. Reflections on the concrete floor don't sway like branches or twinkle like your eyes. They're still just like my door. Reflections of a life unwise and by grace outgrown. I outlasted. Because of his love, I moved past it. Some reflections are expensive and some are very cheap, like the cast shadow of prison bars and the banging and slamming of Cadillac doors. Now I'm inspired by Christ to reflect on the present and a future still clean and unspent. Reflections on the concrete floor. I'm not looking down, so I don't see them anymore. Because of the Holy Spirit's grace, I outlasted. Because of Jesus Christ's love, I moved past it. Because of the Father of lights, I have hope and a future clean and unspent. So there you go.
Wow. Man, I had a couple questions that yeah, I don't know if they even relate a whole lot anymore, but that is quite the story. And there's a couple times where I was close, and really and for anybody listening, that you could just tell how powerful of a story you have, and for you to still be here and wanting to still encourage and instill hope in other people, like it's beyond inspiring, man. So why tell your story? What does that mean to you? And when you're sitting in front of somebody, like I know you go to different jails now, after you tell somebody their story, what do you hope that they can get out of what you have to say to them?
Um, because I think it matters. Like I think God uses it. Like this is the lane He's put me in to not always tell my story, but to just connect with people. And
Mm-hmm.
I think might be a different lane, but just the devastation, the trauma that I went through early on. A lot of people have their own version of that, and even, you don't have to have a pirate story um, to have had gone through rough stuff. Everybody's been through like one tittle more, they would have burst into flame. You know what I
Right.
mean? In their own fashion, like everyone's been through something really
Mm-hmm.
almost took them off. You know, like, that's what I think. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, there's a storm driving people, and they haven't even stopped to consider like, okay, where did this storm come from? What's the root of the issue? What's the heart of the matter? And I think uh, God just positioned me in this lane where I get to share my story or just connect with people and reason with them in their you know hard to reach position, in jail or prison, and
Right.
and a lot of people too. I think I don't know how many times this has happened where it comes up like that they came to the Lord as a child, but they think they're not a Christian, and it's like, well, let me tell you a story, and I came to the Lord as in my tender childhood, and the Lord kept me the whole time. I was in Him the whole time. I was not lost from Him at all, and it certainly probably didn't look like it to anybody else.
Right.
And people, sharing my story just wakes people up to that. Like, hey, man, everything's cool. Like, you just been looking down. You've been listening and staring at the pain and trauma that, for 10 or 20 years or whatever. And it's like, hey, just look up. The Lord is not far from you. Nothing's changed. You're just like a super hot mess. That's all, you know? And it's like, let's just come back. Let's just come back. Let's start over. You know,
Mm.
hopefully that wasn't too much for that question, but
Not at all. That's beautiful. I think that answers it beautifully because people are able to then relate with your story. And like you said, it's never too late to start over. And I mean, like you just shared, you've been through plenty of things to where you could have just given up. And a lot of people wouldn't have blamed you. Like you said, they've been like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But for you to still go and to still say, even though I failed here or I fell here, like God's still not done with me and I'm still able to use this. And it's crazy how after all that, and you wanted to just go back to that recovery place, that treatment center where you've gone, to go back and just say, hey, let's play some games with people. Let's just interact and try to show somebody that I care. And God was like, that's what I'm telling you, man. But we're gonna do it over here instead. Like all it took was that step. And obviously I can't even begin to relate with the story that you just shared, but getting into law enforcement, that's something that I always want to do. I always want to be a police officer like my grandpa and my dad before me. And for some reason, I just couldn't get it. I had a couple opportunities at different jobs, and my mental health just kept bringing me down. And um, ended up getting into a minor car accident while I was working, and so I was not able to keep working at that agency. And remember I was on top of a roof shoveling snow, and I said, maybe I'm gonna call the jail. I know a guy there who I did some boxing stuff with, and maybe I'll call him and see if I can get a job there full time because I need something. And that pursuit of law enforcement is what I thought the plan was. Just like you had said, how you thought, you just want to go play with some games with some guys and try to get them inspired, and then all of a sudden God says, you're in the right direction, but I'm going to put you over here instead. And He moved me into the jail, and to be able to be around people like that and even see people like you coming in to help these guys out and inspire hope, and kind of what this podcast is. It's called Iron Purpose, based off of Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Like we're all kind of in this together. And so that's kind of where I got the name of this podcast. But to be able to inspire people for hope, for purpose, is a beautiful thing, man. And it sounds like that's that's you, in a nutshell, inspiring.
Well, I'm honored that I mean, with what you're saying, it's thank you. And on the same hand, it's the way the Lord's with me, the way
Mm-hmm.
He's cut this path for me. Um, I think I but I have to tears sometimes. Sometimes just thinking about what I get to do and just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I didn't have a 5-year plan and go to school. It's like I'm just
Right.
trying to do game night. I'm just a dude in the neighborhood. And it's just wonderful, wonderful. Like the Lord is just, He wants to save us with loyal love and position us in honor and just help us to do something with Him and accomplish and help. And there's something just popped in my head, so I think I'm supposed to say it. Um, for somebody or maybe more than one, but me and my mom are super cool. I
Mm.
mean, we're like super sweet. Just spent time with her recently. Um, and it was a couple years ago. I'm single and I went through this really nasty divorce and it was super unfair. Stuff. It's just terrible. But I was just sitting on that for a while, and um, my ex had been put out of the house and whatnot. It was 5 or 6 months into that, and my mom asked me one day, so how's it going? How is she? And she didn't know anything that was going on. I said, you know what? Oh, this all happened, and she, I couldn't even. She can't be here like it was. Um, and it's just really distressing because a lot of her stuff's here. Like she took her stuff and all her pictures and knickknacks are here. So that's looking at this stuff, and it just. And she says, you know what, honey? I'll be there tomorrow. We'll pack it all up. She lives in California, and she did. She
Wow.
she like booked a plane. Boom, bam, boom. She was out here next morning, and it's like God put His increase and just like a love grace on it, and I just a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff I didn't share earlier, but like pretty uh, wild. Just growing up with my mom, it was a heck of a deal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like the Lord just supercharged this moment. It was like she's here now, and she helped me, and she nurtured me, and she, you know what I mean. And I almost got hung up like I'm a grown man. I don't think I actually told that to one of my friends, and he's like, "You're tripping, dude." He's like, "That's a super blessing if your mom comes and helps you, especially with that." It
Mm-hmm.
was just we spent like 4 days together, just 24/7, packing everything up and just wrapping it up and packing it and getting it where it should go. And um, yeah, so you just never know um,
Mm-hmm.
how the Lord will just heal. And it's like every time I'm with my mom now, it's just like this epic redemption moment. Like I'm just so aware, you know. And I wasn't no pony ride either, you know what I mean?
Right.
So and it's like it's just neat, the God. He's all about making things new, restoring and recovering everything that's been lost. He'll pursue it, recover it. So
It's just like you said about those storms. There was times in your lives when you could see the storm coming, and all you had to do was just hold on and get through that dark time. But on the flip side, like opportunities are coming too, and sometimes they're going to come in ways that you would least expect it to. And sometimes they're in a in the right in the middle of that storm, you're going to come upon it. But being open and aware of maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe I can grow here. Maybe there's going to be a relationship out of this, or maybe why do I want to play games with these guys and try to be there for them? I'm going to do it. Let's do it anyway. Like sometimes just jumping on those opportunities, even when you least expect it, God's going to use that for your good. And just like you share with your mom, like you're like, I don't need, I don't want my mom to come here. And you're like, oh, you know what, whatever. Maybe it is something good. And now you have a beautiful relationship with her now. Like that's man, that's awesome.
mhm.
What a beautiful story. What a wonderful time. I'm so excited to share this conversation with other people. I know 100% it's going to inspire. Yeah, I'm inspired. If nobody else gets anything out of it, I very much am. I got some good notes. And Bert, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your willingness to come on here and speak with me and to speak with others. And I know God's not done with you yet either. I feel like this is just the beginning for you, and
Well,
I'm
you too,
I'm
man. I'm
excited.
I'm really don't like to use the word proud. I'm just really happy about the man you are and still becoming in Christ. I can see it, and it's just neat to see somebody with the right heart that's in law enforcement, CO.
Yes, sir.
So that's really neat, So God bless you
I
so much,
appreciate it.
as you continue to encourage people and when you can, in jail. So
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much, Bert. Is there anything else you want to say?
if you go on the website Wellness in the Woods, what is that? MNWITW.org. There's a thing called Hope on Purpose. You can go to that area and you could track me down there if you're supporting or whatever.
Sure, absolutely. Word applies. All right, man.
So,
well, thank you so much again.
Yeah, God bless you so much, bro. Thanks.
And God bless you too. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
All right.